I wanted to move on to a whole. So what else has happened? One of the things about any new administration, let's sort of take party politics out for a moment before we go straight back into it. But any new administration will want to do a lot of things, move fast, announce changes on a range of fronts, and that is not in itself inherently a pernicious thing. That's just that's a natural part of being a new government. But one of the things that it does do is it sort of floods the zone with stuff that becomes quite hard to discuss. And there are some things that we've spoken about a lot. I think actually the Elon Musk salute discourse has been probably the single most prominent thing that's happened in the last 2 days, which is not a policy.
Which is also a flooding of the zone, right? Because we're talking about that and not. There's definitely been more coverage of that than the fact that foreign aid has been suspended. There has definitely been more coverage of that than the fact that sanctions on extremist, violent West Bank settlers were lifted at the moment that extremist, violent West Bank settlers are being extremist, violent settlers against Palestinians in the West Bank. We haven't really talked about that. We've been talking about Musk's salute. So and I've fallen into it too. The thing that I think is a wonderful example of this is, Rohan mentioned it already, birthright citizenship. Okay. Birthright citizenship is in the Constitution. If something is it is very clearly in the Constitution. This is not up for debate. You cannot change the Constitution with an executive order, obviously. So Trump saying, actually, now, no, you're not. Now you're not born a citizen if you're born in the U.S. And actually, if your mother is here legally but temporarily, and your father is not, then no, you don't count. Like, you must pass these riddles 3 before you can a citizen be. Like, that's not how the Constitution, how the 14th Amendment was written. Do I think that even this Supreme Court will uphold this? No, I don't, because it is so clearly unconstitutional. But what last I saw was 18 states were suing. So those states are paying money, taking time. There's several articles, many articles about birthright citizenship, what it means, People are debating the meaning of the clause that these conservative lawyers are like, haha, perhaps it means that they're not citizens after all. Yes, whatever. I'm like, we're not even doing that. It takes up so much time. It takes up so much energy. It takes up so much attention. And we're contesting something that's like basic and core to U.S. law and has been for over a century, right? So that maybe that doesn't get through because it's so obviously unconstitutional. But in the meantime,
let me point to another one. Sorry, Tom. I don't know if you had a point to finish up there, but another one is the U.S. pulling out of the WHO. This is not going to get a lot of attention in the U.S. And maybe this is part of my a similar sort of mea culpa on I've been asked by a few others today how India is reacting to this, and the Indian government particularly is positive, and maybe the Indian public at large, but specific folks, experts, advocates, activists in India certainly have a lot of concerns about what's happening. For example, the WHO, US is the biggest funder of the WHO, and certainly the WHO, there's a number of questions about how it's operated in the last few years, in particular with regards to China. But the US pulling out is going to have serious impacts on our research of things like tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS in places like India and elsewhere, and that's simply not going to get the attention that it ought to. The US pulling out of Paris obviously is deeply worrying people across South Asia, at least the folks paying attention to this, because as one of the most climate vulnerable parts of the world, we might deplore American lectures on many things, but American capital and expertise on dealing with climate change is crucial for us to get through, the climate transition. So there are, even if the Indian public by and large is professing some sort of admiration for Trump, there are real downstream effects that we're not even going to be paying much attention to, because, as you said, we're litigating this, whether the Nazi salute was a Nazi salute.
Well, if it helps, this will also... No, it's not going to help. I was just going to say that don't worry, he's also taking it out on people domestically. For example, in canceling announcements from places like the NIH and the CDC, so that so that we can't know what's going on in terms of public health, and also in suspending further investment in green energy initiatives.